All right, enough with the theory, let's get into the workshop. Today, we're actually going to build a REALM, right from scratch. This is the operating framework for what we call a company of one. I'm going to walk you through the exact technical stack and the entire setup process step by step, just like in the source material. So if you're a solopreneur and you're thinking about how to, multiply your efforts with AI, well, you are in exactly the right place. This is where we lay the foundation. This is where we start building your very own AI-powered crew. Okay, first, just a super quick reminder of what exactly we're building here. A realm. It's not just another piece of software. Think of it more like a complete operating system for your one-person business. It's what gives you that shared language, that structure. It turns a random handful of AI tools into an actual, cohesive team that works together. So here's our quest map for today. First, we're going to gather our tools. Then we'll forge our very first AI character. After that, we'll give it a soul, its personality. Then we'll build its memory, which is called the codex. And finally, we make first contact. All right, first things first, every builder needs a toolkit, right? So this section is all about getting that foundational software in place so we can start constructing our realm. So the specific stack we're using, straight from the source material, is this. We've got OpenClaw as our local engine, Slack is going to be our command center, Obsidian will be the knowledge base, and we'll use the GitHub Codex Starter to get a nice, ready-made structure. Put them all together, and you get a really powerful, self-hosted system. Okay, let's kick things off with OpenClaw. The best way to think about this, it's the engine room of your whole operation. It's an open source platform, it runs right on your local machine, and it's what actually brings your AI characters to life. Next up, we have Slack. This is your bridge, your command center. It's the messaging app where you'll actually talk to your agents, give them tasks, and get updates back from them. And a little tip from the source, it's a really good idea to set up a dedicated workspace just for this, just to keep everything nice and clean. And finally, we've got this great pairing, Obsidian and the Codex Starter from GitHub. This duo, this is what creates the codex. And the codex is, well, it's the shared, living memory of your entire operation. Honestly, this is such a crucial piece of the puzzle. Okay, tools are assembled. Now it's time for the fun part. We're going to forge our first character. This is where we get into the nitty-gritty of the technical setup, connecting Slack and OpenClaw to really create the identity for our very first AI agent. So, creating a character inside Slack is actually just a three-step process. First, you'll create a new app. This basically gives the agent its name and its face. Second, you'll configure its permissions. And finally, you'll install it and grab the API tokens you need. That's it. Now, this is a really critical piece of advice from the source material, so listen up. You have to be super deliberate with permissions. The recommendation is to start with the absolute bare minimum the agent needs to function. Something like just being able to write and chat, and only add more permissions when you have a clear, specific need for them. It's called the principle of least privilege, and it's a huge security best practice. Okay, now let's hop over to OpenClaw. The configuration here all happens in one central JSON file. Inside that file, you'll do three main things. You'll define which AI models you want to use. You'll define the agent itself, giving it an ID and telling it where its workspace is. And then finally, you'll connect it all up to that Slack app we just created. And here is another absolutely crucial security tip. Your API tokens. Think of them as the keys to your entire kingdom. You should never paste them directly into a config file. Seriously, don't do it. Instead, you reference them as environment variables. It's a simple step that keeps them separate and, most importantly, secure. Okay, so right now, our agent is just a raw language model. It doesn't have an identity. This next phase, this is where we define its soul. This is where we give our character its unique personality, its purpose, and its procedural memory. So we have to ask a fundamental question: who is this character and what exactly do they do? And the way we answer that is by setting up three core files in the agent's own dedicated workspace. Each one serves a very specific purpose in defining its identity. Now check this out, because this is a really key design choice, separating identity from procedure. The sol.md file defines who the agent is, its personality, its tone, its boundaries. It's literally like a character sheet from a role-playing game. Then the agents.md file defines how the agent works. These are its procedures, its workflows, its rules. This is its playbook. Keeping these two separate makes the agent so much easier to manage and update down the line. And that third file, identity.md, it's much, much simpler. You can think of it like a little public-facing business card. It just holds the basic metadata: name, ID, role. It's short, to the point, and it's just what OpenClaw needs to identify the agent correctly. Okay, now let's move on to the codex. And remember, this is not just a collection of files. This is a central shared memory of your entire realm. So you can probably guess that building its structure correctly is a really critical step. And this is probably the single most important rule of the entire realm framework. The codex is truth. If it is not written down in the codex, it does not exist. Every decision, every result, every little piece of context has to be recorded here. A goal that's not written down, it's just a wish. The good news is you don't have to invent this whole structure from scratch. The REALM Codex Starter on GitHub gives you this exact folder layout right out of the box. It's like a pre-built scaffold, and it's perfectly designed to organize every single aspect of your company of one. All right, this is it, the moment of truth. All the pieces are in place. It is time for first contact. Bringing our brand new, freshly configured character online and having that very first conversation. The launch sequence is pretty straightforward. First, you start the OpenClaw service. Second, you send your agent its very first message in Slack. Third, you approve that initial interaction in your terminal window. And then, this is the important part, you test the soul. Ask it some questions, see if that personality you worked so hard to write is actually coming through. And just like that, the foundation is built. Your first character is online, live, waiting for your direction. The whole system is ready to go. And that brings us to the final and maybe most important question. Now that you have your first crew member, what's the very first quest you're going to embark on together?